respond obviously to fires, emergencies with vehicles and accidents. We also cover a large scale of medical emergencies, as well as collapse of buildings. We also respond to emergencies underground in the subway.
My guest this week is Alcidé Salcé. Alcidé is one of New York's bravest, serving as a firefighter with the Fire Department of New York for over 20 years. Alcidé has a Bachelor of Arts in Fire Emergency Management and an MPA in Crisis, Emergency and Disaster Management. He is currently a member of the Fire Department of New York's Command Tactical Unit, including the use of robotics and drones, and he's also a certified drone operator and instructor with drone cadets. Alcidé, welcome to STEM with Mr. N.
Thank you very much, Stuart. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you on. Now, can we just start off with, obviously everyone will know that part of being a firefighter involves putting out fires, but what are actually some of the other day-to-day responsibilities of being a firefighter?
Well, some of the things that we do here, especially in New York, being such a large city with a large population, we respond obviously to fires, emergencies with vehicles and accidents. We also cover a large scale of medical emergencies. The pandemic obviously was one of the bigger ones, large scale emergencies such as storms. We had a storm a long time ago, 2012, Sandy, that really flooded the area of New York in a way that it hasn't ever, I don't think it's ever been flooded like that in quite some time, as well as collapse of buildings. We also respond to emergencies underground in the subway, as well as tunnels, and of course the high rises, right? So you have maintenance and personnel that have to take care of those buildings. Sometimes things go wrong while they're doing their jobs, and we're there to kind of mitigate whatever the situation is, as well as a lot of hazmat emergencies that come up due to, again, the large scale of the city.
So the term firefighter doesn't actually really give justice to the wide range of things that is actually involved just in the day-to-day life of a typical firefighter. But
absolutely.
I'd mentioned there in the introduction, you're part of the FDNY Command Tactical Unit. So I take it then you've done additional training to be able to be involved in that unit?
Yes, so one of the things to be one of the drone operators in the Command Tactical Unit, obviously for us here in the US, you have to have your Part 107 under the FAA, as well as be very knowledgeable of the drones that you're operating and how to safely use them in a large scale area. Like I said, in a city like New York, you have a lot of buildings, Wi-Fi interference, and the fact that there are always people around, you have to be able to mitigate around that as well. On top of that, with the CTU, I'm also part of the Special Operations Command, which gives us a lot more training for all those specialty type of emergencies. Like I said, the high rise, the tunnels, the collapse, all that type of emergencies.
And firefighter is not something that would typically be seen as a STEM career. And I know this is something that you want to expand a bit more on, but can we just start first with the drones? So obviously drones are part of technology and there's coding and things involved in that. So how do the Fire Department of New York use drones to help them with their job?
Very good question. So what we're doing right now is we're adding another tool to the toolbox. When a fire were to occur, if a fire were to occur, the chief or the officer in command of the fire scene wouldn't really have eyes on the back of the building or the top of the building. And now with drones, we're able to give them a view that they usually would depend on verbal commands from other officers or other firefighters that are in that location. Now the chiefs that are in charge of the fire scene are able to actually look at a screen and see exactly what's going on in areas that they're not able to see, as well as areas or emergencies in, let's say, fires in a junkyard or in a large scale area like a dry marsh area. If that were to start burning and get out of control, they would have a bird's eye view of where, a better way to mitigate putting the fire out.
And I believe from reading about some of your training that you're also involved in water rescues as well. Are the drones used for water rescues as well?
Yes, they are. We actually just recently did a overwatch on the scuba team or the scuba unit which are basically the firefighters that would go under the water to search for any victims. And recently in New York, we've had quite a lot of shark sightings. So that was a new twist to our usual water type of run for us, or water type of emergency, where we're using the drone to actually try to spot where the missing swimmer is, or the boat operator for a jet ski or on a boat. Now we're actually assisting our own members while they're doing their training to maintain their scuba requirement. We're actually doing an overwatch and looking for sharks in case they need to get out of the water, which is just as dangerous as one of the more dangerous parts of our job is scuba diving, due to all the different factors that can go wrong. And now we're adding this extra factor of aquatic life kind of interfering. So it was actually very interesting for us, as well as the divers that were going in, to have that overwatch for them. In reference to the actual water runs, obviously we would use the drones to either spot, locate, or even guide the divers as to the best location where the person might be, depending on the situation and the area.
And it's amazing to hear how drones, as more modern technology, is getting used in such an old profession as firefighting, and making such a difference. So
Yes.
are there plans for more robotics to come into the fire department and be used?
Yes, so at the moment, we currently have a Boston Dynamic quadruped, or the Spot robot, the one that you've maybe seen on YouTube videos. And the expectation down the road is to be able to utilize that as well as another tool in the box to be able to reduce the risk and increase our reward. So if we had a situation in a tunnel or in a subway area, a subterranean subway area, we would be able to utilize that quadruped, which can handle going downstairs, and we can place meters on them, from hazmat meters to thermal imaging cameras, to give us a better view without committing personnel to a more dangerous situation.
Yeah, and that was one of the things as well when you were talking about the drones. I thought it's a great way to not put human life at risk, you know, sending somebody up on top of a building or down into a tunnel. So that was a very important point mentioned there. And I mean, obviously you're very passionate about your job, otherwise you wouldn't have been doing it for as long as you have done and done all the extra training you have done. But I believe you're now wanting to start heading out and giving back to the community and making people more aware of all the STEM that's involved in being a firefighter. So now's a chance for you to get that all out about how firefighting is actually such a STEM career.
Yeah, so I got a little taste of wanting to kind of show kids some of the things we do when I myself had children, and once they got to the elementary school and middle school, they had career day, and I was able to come in and kind of do a little presentation of what we wear and what we do, and how to have a consciousness of fire safety, for especially on a child's level. Where when we're going into a burning building, usually that's what we're searching for, because they tend to hide or run away from dangerous situations, and that's usually where we come in and try to find them. And that gave me this little spark of, wow, I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. And having two kids within a year difference, I was doing it almost twice per semester, let's say, or per school year. And then eventually word got around that my presentation was a lot of fun, and other teachers started actually asking me to come into their classroom, which was a little weird because my child wasn't in that classroom, but I still agreed, and I had a lot of fun with it. And then when they got a little older, that kind of died down. As they get into the older schools, it's not a show and tell, it's more of a question and answers, and they have it a little bit more adult-like, where they almost are interviewing us in reference to our career. And recently I had the wonderful opportunity of working for drone cadets. Tony Reed and Grace Cantwell are the CEOs of that, and they gave me the opportunity to go teach about drones with them. And that really sparked something. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time doing all this fun STEM related topic with children. And it sparked an idea. I was like, wow, I really would like to share even more of the things that I've done, not only with the drones that we're currently using in the fire department and the drones that were being used for the drone cadet program, but also some of the other things that we've done that are 100% STEM based and STEM related, from the very basics of putting a fire out, to understanding the nature of a fire and the tetrahedron of a fire, to the advancements 20 years later within my career, I would never have thought that I would be operating a drone or a quadruped at an emergency. And that really struck the notion that I wanted to do this more. And I ended up recently, I just started S Corp. It's STEM with Ashes. Ashes is an acronym for us in my house. It's actually the family name. Every first letter of all of us spells Ashes. I personally just recently purchased a Unitree Go One quadruped myself to kind of use to show the kids what a quadruped is capable of, and we named it Ashes. So the company right now is STEM with Ashes.
That sounds great that you're getting out there and giving children this opportunity to get involved in STEM in a completely different way, in a field that they won't even have considered as being a STEM field.
Absolutely.
But this is a nice point to now go back into your past and when you were at school. What first got you interested in STEM?
Well, for me, it had to do with video games. I was at that, obviously I was born in an era where video games were becoming more and more popular, from the coin arcades to eventually becoming a home staple, right? You can go to the store and purchase an arcade system. For me, it was the Atari 26 and 2600. And from there, it just continued with Nintendos and PlayStations, Xbox. And that kind of stirred this hunger for more tech. And the tech was now in our homes. With that, there was a little reverse engineering, or as my parents probably would have explained it, as me breaking things. Sometimes I put them back together and sometimes I didn't. And that grew into more of circuitry and eventually robotics and obviously computers and then coding and things like that. So it was an interesting journey, again, to start from such a basic concept of an 8-bit, Atari 2600, and now we're operating drones and quadrupeds and other robotics, and the coding that children are now capable of doing compared to what we had to do back then with floppy disks and Commodores and Apples. It's been a great journey, and that is kind of what I want to share, that a lot of these children need to understand that loving that doesn't mean that you have to follow that career field. You don't have to be a programmer or a tech savvy, because of the fact that a lot of jobs are STEM based. You just have to be able to figure it out and realize where the STEM is in every position out there in the world.
And as modern technology continues to progress, it is creeping more and more into these different STEM fields. And I think it's a very important point there that you had about, even if you're interested in these things, you don't necessarily need to follow into that being your career, as obviously you didn't go on to become a firefighter. But what was it like for you at school? Was there something that put you off going in that direction as a career?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I realized later in life, and actually it was technology that helped me be aware of this. I had a very difficult time in school when I was younger. And it turns out that now that I'm older and I'm using technology, I'm able to listen to books. I started listening to a lot of books, and a lot of them were self-help books or self-improvement books. And I realized through listening to some of these books that I suffered from dyslexia, attention deficit disorder, and hyperactivity disorder. And if you notice, sometimes I speak a little fast. And what I ended up realizing when I was listening to books, that when I listened to them at normal pace, it was a little bit too slow for my brain. And when I started to speed up the speed on the actual author that was reading it, it clicked to me that I'm like, that explains what was going on when I was younger. Everything was moving a little slow for my brain to process because my brain was moving so much faster. And I look back and I realize where I was struggling and where I had difficulties. Now that I'm in the position where I'm self-aware of these issues and I have an opportunity to help children, I realized as I was teaching some of them that I could pinpoint exactly what some of them were going through. Like, for example, if a child got out of their seat, I understood that antsiness or that anxiety to move around and not be able to sit still, and it didn't bother me. I didn't correct it. I kind of just re-guided or refocused that energy and said, hey, let's go do something, rather than can you please sit down and let's get back to work. I'm able to, I guess, associate with them a little bit better, because I understand, number one, myself, and I understand what they're going through. And I'm hoping that I can pass along those lessons that I've learned, and the fact that they themselves can use technology down the road to help themselves even further.
So from what you're saying there, when you're talking about you're now in a position to help, I take it when you were at school, this wasn't understood, you know, all of your energy and your attention. And did that then make school life quite difficult?
Yes, I think, and not to put blame on them, I'm pretty sure they were not aware of these issues back in the 80s and the late 70s. When I went through what I went through in school, I was able to still get through because I did graduate every time I passed the grade and all that. But I look back and I realized when I wasn't reading the books that I had to read to the level that I had to read them, I realized the reason was the words were jumping around. And now I'm hoping that I can point that out to others as well, even though there's a big movement now in the education system that they're able to pinpoint those things and help those students work through that.
Yeah, and it's great though that you're in that position of being able to recognise it and associate with it and help them on a different level from people that, you know, don't go through that, would be able to help. You've got that sort of understanding. So now that we've spoken about your school life, what then led you to joining the FDNY?
For me, it was an activity level that I had that I couldn't do the shirt and tie. I couldn't do the Wall Street scene. I couldn't do the cubicle. And I realized that this level of energy needed to be refocused. And I started as a personal trainer as soon as I came back from the United States Navy, where I served for some time. And then from there, I was able to apply for the New York City Fire Department. And as soon as I set foot at Randall's Island, or the Rock, as we like to call it, which is where the probationary firefighter school is located, I found my home. I found a place where I was able to expel this extra energy, absorb all this information that my brain was craving for, and then utilize it in a very positive way and put it right back into the community, serving in the city.
Well, given the fact you already had a lot of energy, I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing that you seem really energized by what you do, but you've clearly still got a lot of energy since you're still, you know, an active serving firefighter, and you have STEM with Ashes. And we've already mentioned a wee bit about drone cadets, and you touched on them briefly in one of your answers, but could you expand a wee bit more on what drone cadets involves and how you got involved in it?
Yeah, so drone cadets, we came across each other's paths using LinkedIn. So I found them on LinkedIn. And prior to working for them, I actually was following Tony Reed, who was doing some amazing things. And I saw him post these videos of these kids doing, again, drone operations and learning about drones. And I started to follow all his trends. And eventually he said the magic word, right? We're hiring. And I said, I'm available. And from there, we did obviously the interview process, and I got hired by them, and I did a lot of extensive training with them, which was really good training. And then eventually I got my own group to teach and show their program and their criteria for drone operation. And it was so much fun. And it still is. I'm still working with them. And I also had a partner with me, Onyx Musa, who was working with me at this location, and we just had a blast. They're teaching not only drone operations, but they're also teaching VR, drone racing, the drone repairs at times. And at the same time, they're also teaching the proper way. So they're teaching the Part 107 rules of actually utilizing a drone in the space that you're in, right? Because everywhere you go, it's going to be a little different. And they learn about airports and the altitude that you're allowed to fly in different areas. They'll learn about not flying over people and objects causing distractions. That a drone team like the New York City Fire Department, which I shared a lot with the children, the drone team is consistent of two people. It's the pilot in command and the visual observer. And the kids were really, really absorbing all this information on multiple levels. And then they challenged them with different tasks or games, you know, drone bowling, from drone rescue to drone relay races, and obviously drone racing.
It sounds like a brilliant way for the children to get not only hands-on with the technology, but also related to real life examples of when it would be used. And with you obviously doing that in your main job, you know, you're a perfect person to be able to speak to them about that. And with there being right now a big push for more diversity within STEM, is that something that you're seeing within drone cadets? Is there a lot of diversity of people coming through?
Absolutely. One of their main focuses is to reach the inner city kids or the low income neighborhoods where STEM might not be available for them at their school or at their community center. So these are things that are sometimes lacking in these areas. And Drone Cadets is actually bringing it in to these areas and giving them this opportunity to start either showing, gaining interest in STEM and technology and drones, but also showing the community how important it is for them. Because while we were there, you also saw how the adults, the staff members that were also unaware of this technology and how much fun, but also how much goes into learning how to properly use a drone, you could see how much they showed interest. You would almost be fair to say that they could probably run an adult program and have the same amount of people show up as there were kids. That's how much technology is lacking in these low income communities, or these communities that just don't have a STEM based program within their school or community area.
And it's great to hear that that is a target, because not only is the technology not available there, but with how quickly technology is moving, it's very easy for any of us to be left behind, but particularly those that don't have access to, you know, most of the technology that's about just now. So that's a great aim for them. And you work a lot with children. Obviously, you've been saying STEM with Ashes is born from going into schools, and that's what you want to be doing with that. And then obviously with the drone cadets as well. So have you got any advice for children or young people who may be interested in STEM but aren't sure what to do with it or how it can progress into a career?
Absolutely. One of the best things that is available now is the ability to learn almost anything. You can go on the internet, you can go on YouTube and literally learn how to take apart a machine and put it all back together step by step. You can learn all the rules and regulations of operating a drone, operating a quadruped. You can learn coding, which is something that Drone Cadets also emphasizes, as well as learning how to repair all these items. You know, all these things are available. So the one thing that I would really emphasize, and it's one of the things that I would like to do with STEM with Ashes, is show children and anyone else that's interested how to help yourself. It's a do-it-yourself type of world that we're living in now, and it's becoming more and more prevalent that if you're able to look and sift through all the information that's out there and find exactly what you like, you'll be able to accomplish nearly anything, including learning computer programming, which for some it's a college degree with years and years of study, and in the comfort of your own home, you could start learning that already. So when you get to college to learn that, you're already well adapted to all the information that's going to now be thrown at you.
That's terrific advice. And unfortunately, you know, I've spoke recently to a friend of mine who's a firefighter here in the UK, and he said that there's currently no sign of drones on the horizon in this country, but I know it's fairly new for you in New York. Do you think this is something that is going to end up spreading out to fire departments around the world, not just specifically drones, but robotics in general, with making the job a bit easier and a bit safer?
Absolutely, absolutely. I actually work with two gentlemen that started their own business. I think it's Props is the name of their company, and they just collaborated with Drone U, which is an online learning website where you can learn about drones. And they've just collaborated and did a first responder type of education where they're now able to help other departments set up and operate their own drone program. So it's actually an interesting twist, because they're now going to help exactly what you just asked. Will it spread? It's already spreading. It's already being utilized from both the fire service to the police service in city areas and in rural areas. So for example, the wildfires or the forest fires that you see a lot on the news are now being both mitigated from reconnaissance perspective to actual mitigation where they're actually deploying from the drones. They're deploying materials that are actually putting almost like a fire line where they're able to stop the fire from spreading. Still in its infancy, but it's definitely going to continue to improve. And the other trend that I'm noticing, especially online, again, if you're into it, you start to follow it. And when you follow it, you see the news coming in. The police departments are starting to really utilize drones for obvious reasons. You know, when you have someone on the run or something like that, rather than having a helicopter or a high risk police chase, now you can follow and track with a drone safely, putting less people at risk and still acquiring your goal of apprehending the perpetrator or the suspect that they're after. So it's definitely going to spread, and it's not just in the US. I think it's going to be a worldwide technology that's not going to go away.
Well, there we go. For people out there listening who are thinking firefighting, maybe not a STEM career, there's a lot that is actually involved. And Alcidé mentioned earlier about the science behind how fires start. I've made a video about how fires start, what's involved, and different ways fire extinguishers can put them out. So I'll put a link in the description for you to be able to check that video out. Alcidé, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Stuart. It's been a pleasure not only talking to you today, but meeting you and talking in the past. We've had some great conversations, and this is the type of conversations that I would love to continue having, not only with you, but with others as well.